A young man named Gibong works in a convenience store as a cashier. Gibong is bored with his job, and deep inside he wants to try something new with his life. Later, he gets a text from his mother about his payday being today, and she wants to have some soy sauce chicken when he comes home. When Gibong was reading these texts, a sudden explosion startled Gibong. To check what's happening outside, Gibong sees that there's a huge monster wreaking havoc everywhere. Gibong doesn't understand what's happening, but when he does and understands that it's actually real, he starts to escape. But right then, he trips and falls to the ground. When he tries to check why he tripped, to his horror, he realizes that his legs are lying on the ground, separated from his body. It seems like one of the monsters cut Gibong in half. It was a critical hit, so Gibong understood that there was nothing he could do but wait for death, and eternal darkness awaited him. However, instead of death, Gibong gets a voice telling him, activating the Human Awakening program. Suddenly, Gibong wakes up inside a weird-looking room. He also realizes that his chopped-off body part is intact with him. Then, to his shock, he sees the same monster who almost killed him inside the same room as well. Out of nowhere, a window pops up that says, "Attack the test monster." Gibong doesn't get anything and he starts to lose hope because there's no way he can even land a hit on that monster. However, the pop-up window says that one hit is all Gibong needs to eliminate the test monster. Before understanding the job, the monster charges at Gibong and crushes him like an insect, causing Gibong's death again. But Gibong gets regenerated again and comes back to life. Then he faces the monster again, but this time, the monster straight up decapitates Gibong. Gibong regenerates again, realizing that he has no chance of beating them. Suddenly, a voice assures Gibong that he's right. He actually has no chance against the creature. Gibong demands to know who's speaking and what's the meaning of this. The voice says he's inside a testing trial, and as a human, Gibong has the ability to unlock his full potential. All he has to do is attack the monster to reach such height. The voice also says that if he defeats the monster, he'll go back to the real world. He also doesn't have to think about death because he can respawn again and again, giving him an unlimited amount of trials to unlock his potential. It takes some time for Gibong to understand what he means to do, so he starts thinking about what needs to be done to go back. Years passed inside the Awakening Zone and Gibong gets killed by the monster multiple times. However, as a player, Gibong gains ability points like strength, vitality, and more. After a grand total of 3,000 years fighting inside the Awakening Zone, Gibong comes back to the real world with every ability maxed out. We see Gibong looking for his mother because, as it turns out, times inside the Awakening Zone go much faster than real-world time does. Gibong's 3,000 years are equal to 10 years in real life, so Gibong thinks there's a chance he'll meet his mother. Gibong decides to go home first. Upon reaching the ground, Gibong's appearance also returns to normal. Maybe his hair only turns white whenever he uses his powers anyway. He meets some soldiers and asks where the people in the city are now, to which the soldiers reply that only a few survived the attack 10 years ago, and a handful of survivors who weren't inside the city now live in a safe zone, Shanty Town. Gibong wonders of the soldiers referring to the disaster that happened before he was taken to the Awakening Zone. When Gibong reaches Shanty Town, soldiers try to stop him, but he is not in the mood to argue with these men and effortlessly pushes them away from him, making it clear they won't be able to stop him. All of a sudden, a monster comes at Gibong, but swiftly gets killed by the player. Then another monster tries its luck in attacking Gibong, grabs the tentacles or the monster's tongue, and slams the creature to the ground. Unsatisfied, Gibong stomps the monster's hand before going after the other monsters. Our boy doesn't stop until he obliterates every single monster, unleashing the yanker inside his chest. The boss monster makes its grand entrance, but even terrifying creatures just get surprised too. The boss monster is stunned to see its little buddy is already dead. Meanwhile, the system informs Gibong that killing the boss monster will terminate the dungeon break. So he casually walks toward the gigantic creature, and it's written all over his face that he's not even worried. Gibong asks the system to look for his mother, so the system begins searching the area based on Gibong's memory information and finishes in 3 seconds. Sadly, Gibong's mother isn't there. Now all Gibong can do is attempt to recall what his mother looks like, including his father and younger sister. For 3,000 years, Gibong has struggled to not forget his family, but memories tend to fade and Gibong can no longer see the faces of his lumped ones inside his head. Then the boss roars again, preparing to attack Gibong. Zun watches the boss monster unleash energy blasts at Gibong, who simply activates his physical enhancement ability. The system informs Gibong thinking about the last time he talked to his mother. Gibong launches himself into the air and deflects the boss monster's attack out of the town. Gibong defeats the boss monster. He expresses how exhausted he is at this point, It's safe to say that Gibong isn't just physically tired, but suddenly an old woman comes out of hiding and shakes as she sees the player. The woman calls out to the part-timer. Gibong then turns around, and that's when the system identifies the woman as Kang's mother through voice data. Seeing his mother for the first time in 3,000 years makes Gibong cry because he never stopped thinking about her while he was trapped in the awakening zone. The old woman begins sobbing as she gazes at her son's face, the face that she's hoping to see for a long time. Finally, Gibong's mother shows the missing person poster she's holding, revealing that she's been searching for her son all those years. He was gone. Then as the two ran into each other's arms, Gibong's mother asks Gibong where he's been. Well, the player apologizes to her for subtly disappearing. He tells everything to his mother. Unfortunately, the reunion is interrupted by a long, sharp weapon. Gibong's a max-level player, but he failed to protect his mother. As it turned out, the thing that hit Gibong's mother is a monster's stung. Although its head has already been decapitated, the creature has still managed to make its last race by attacking Gibong's mother. Later, inside the 39th Battalion Capital Defense Force Control Center, Lieutenant Colonel Oh confirms with Zun that the people have been talking about Gibong. He wonders what Gibong is doing to gather so much attention in a month. So the Zun explains that the player has been clearing every dungeon he can find. Zun also adds that Gibong has already destroyed all the dungeons in the vicinity. Lieutenant Colonel Oh points out they've got orders and instructs Zun to recruit Gibong before he causes any more trouble, as Lieutenant Colonel Oh really worries about Gibong creating problems, or is he just threatening that someone else is doing his job for him? Elsewhere, a distraught Gibong mercilessly destroys monsters. It's sad because it's like a kind-hearted Gyeong is no longer there, and the players that have been killing the creature is simply a shell. Gibong has consumed them, and in the end decided to just dedicate his time to getting rid of these monsters, not thinking about anything else anymore. Zun approaches Gibong and tries to convince him to join them. Gibong can't believe that Zun wants him to compose himself to go through more hardships, but he makes it clear he's enough. Gibong then walks away and leaves Zun, who calls out to him and promises that she'll help him get his revenge. Zun swears she'll assist Gibong getting rid of monsters and dungeons, but first the player must come with her. 6 months later, Gibong goes to the hospital to visit someone. As it turns out, his mother is still alive, but she's in a coma in the ICU. While Gibong lives through the glass window, he proudly informs his unconscious mother that he has become a high-ranking civil servant. Sadly, because of that, Gibong won't be able to visit his mother as often. Now, however, he promises to be back soon as he leaves, and is greeted by police officers. The cops salute Gibong, who casually removes his tie and activates his physical enhancement ability. At the same time, Gibong's clothes change into his battle suit, which means he's headed into the dungeon somewhere. Let's go, Gibong tells the officers ready to kill more monsters. Later on, the government announces that the Shield Guild's defenses service in the metropolitan area has ended scouting. Gibong leads his team in the woods and enters a 5-star dungeon, the Monster Bird Nest. Gibong finds the boss monster by the system. As Gibong glares at the giant creature before him, the boss monster called Albatross probably thinks it's finally feeding time. Back on the cliff, one of Gibong's teammates watches him through his binoculars. This guy informs the others that the boss monster doesn't stand a chance against Gibong, adding that the fight will probably end soon. Understandably, Gibong's comrades can't help but admire him for being able to defeat the monsters all by himself. So the vice captain instructs everyone to do their part and collect all of the mana stones they can find. However, they are surprised to see the dungeon's entrance opening. It's Captain Beck, and his team are coming out with an attack. He only asks Gibong's team one question. So which one of you is Gibong Kim? As Gibong continues to fight the boss monster, he successfully hits it in the stomach. Sad to say, that only infuriates the monster Albatross, which attacks Gibong with a breath of fire. The rumbling is enough to be felt from the cliff, and Captain Beck wonders if it's an earthquake or a large explosion from far away. At that moment, Captain Beck figures out Gibong isn't among the people in front of him, deciding to just eliminate them until the man is looking for shows up. When the boss monster attacked Gibong with fire earlier, the player didn't even get hurt. Instead, that resulted in the discovery of his unique trait, Elemental Resistance Rack, S. Now Gibong is pissed and just wants to get things over with. Closing his fist, Gibong delivers a powerful blow that eventually annihilates a boss monster. After the boss monster's ripped body falls to the ground, the system lets Gibong know that he's cleared the dungeon. Then Gibong notices the object that the boss monster dropped and asks the system what it is. As it turns out, it's called a Daystone, but the system can't access further information online. Naturally, Gibong is disappointed, but there's nothing he can do about it. To make things worse, he learns from the system that their allies are under attack at the dungeon entrance. On the cliff, Captain Bake effortlessly kills Gibong's team. Gibong shows up and lands on the cliff, creating another explosion. Gibong's injured teammate is happy to see him, but Gibong is just focused on Captain Bake as Gibong approaches. Captain Bake, the arrogant man, declares he's been waiting to see the player for a long time. He then introduces himself as the scouting captain of the Shield Guild, only to feel overwhelming pressure. At that point, Captain Bake doesn't see Gibong as a player, but as a monster ready to devour him. Captain Bake recalls the guy in the suit's order to recruit Gibong, but he now knows it'll be hard. Additionally, he realizes that Gibong is too powerful to be recruited as a mere captain. The best option that Guild has is to make Gibong an ally, even if it means they have to give up an executive position. So Captain Bake explains to Gibong that his team is the strongest guild in South Korea, straightforwardly asking him to join the Shield Guild. He promises to let Gibong have anything he wants once he joins them, and the player knows it's true because the minimum annual salary of a major guild's captain is 3 billion won. Also, they have so much influence and strength that not even the national government can challenge them. It's obviously an offer that nobody could refuse, and a desperate wish for any player in the world. But after hearing Captain Bake's offer, Gibong decided to ask him one question since he's aware that the Shield Guild is in charge of the capital, city's defense. Was the B neighborhood shantytown emergency sector also under your guild's responsibility? Asked Gibong, thinking only of his mother. Captain Bake then proudly confirms this, but before he can add anything else, Gibong strikes him and sends him flying in the air. The shocked members of the Shield Guild look at their unconscious captain and prepare to fight Gibong, demanding an explanation. So Gibong calmly replies that he's avenging his fallen comrades. By the way, this has absolutely nothing to do with my personal feelings, Gibong sarcastically tells him, ready to unleash his wrath. Now he's a hardened limit breaker who'll stop at nothing to destroy all the dungeons and kill all the monsters in the world. He is Gibong Kim, the max level player. Captain Big only brought the elite members with them to talk to Gibong in case things got ugly. But now after Gibong sent him flying, the planner's now wiping the floor with a subordinate. It's like they're a bunch of dirty old rags. To make things worse for the Shield Guild, Gibong looks absolutely bored. Later, the critically injured members of the Shield Guild are taken back to their headquarters in Bangbei, Dongseol. Her doctors and nurses immediately tend to their needs. Then the suit guy who instructed Captain Beck to recruit Ebon arrives and asks the doctor to give him some time alone with the captain. As it turns out, he's the director and he doesn't care even though Captain Beck is still unconscious. It's just a matter of seconds. Captain Beck awakens and stammers as he apologizes to the director for failing to complete his mission. But the director simply wants him to explain in detail. So Captain Beck recounts how Gibong single-handedly defeated the entire scout team, including him. The director can't believe that Gibong is that strong, and Captain Beck can only add that the guy's power is immeasurable. There they plan to get Gibong in their team. Having heard enough, the director asks Captain Beck to rest and leaves thinking of the way to deal with Gibong before other guilds take him in. He then makes a call and sends a kill order to the Vice Guild Master, determined to get rid of the max level player who didn't want to join them. That way, the director will be sure that no one will stand in their way. Later, a 4-star dungeon opens at the Abyssal Shore. Of course, Gibong has no problem destroying the monsters, and while doing so, he asks the system what a Daystone is. The player wants more information. Again, the system is unable to search in offline mode, leaving Gyeong frustrated. However, the system reveals that it can absorb the Daystone. It continues to explain that absorbing the Daystone can upgrade the system and give access to the source of the dungeons. Wasting no time, Gibong instructs the system to absorb the Daystone, not knowing that in the city a guy with white hair is looking for him. Well, the guy did his best to draw a picture of Gibong and show it to people, but no one recognizes it. Suddenly, there are bright lights around Gibong when the system completely absorbs the Daystone and starts expanding. Then at that moment, the white-haired guy realizes where to find Gibong. Afterward, the system gains 2 new features, 1 human analysis and 2 motion expressions. Gibong wonders if it's different from the normal human search function, learning that it will allow the system to find out detailed information about someone, including their height, weight, birthday, and others.